Hello. What I would like to speak about is finding ourselves after years of prolonged trauma. You experience ADHD, I experience ADHD. We've probably been diagnosed or at least suspect that we experience autism. We need to talk about all of this. The current conversation surrounding ADHD and autism in the mainstream is in its infantile years, and I don't think it's serving those of us that are like adults, grown-ups, post 21, trying to lead lives that really work for us, because it's all happening. And I think so many of us are so overwhelmed, so exhausted, and yet on the internet we are being plastered with, here's how my life got so much better after getting my ADHD awakening diagnosis. I only really think that diagnosis is half of the story for the majority of us, or at least the people that I work with. So my name is byjosephine.k and I am a clinical hypnotherapist. This means that I am a therapist who works with the subconscious mind, and I utilize hypnosis, which is a state of mind where we are very calm and at ease and very focused. Think hyper focus, and we then apply this state of hyper focus therapeutically. It's the bee's knees. Working with my subconscious is the only form of therapy that's really gone for gold and made the shifts and the changes that I needed, and they've stuck, especially in a way where it's not me having to use willpower or grit or changing myself. I often find that with my clients, we are working with acute trauma. It's part of the journey, it's part of the process. Now, this makes sense, especially when we look at ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. When we take this label, we see it as a reaction that the body has created in response to the lives that we're leading. I really like to adopt this approach because for me, it goes from this mystery disorder that I was genetically going to have whether I did anything or not, to, okay, perfect, I've definitely inherited genes which shift me towards being more likely to experience ADHD and or autism. However, I can essentially adjust my inputs so I can change my output. This is more of the epigenetics approach, which is the true approach to genes. Yes, we inherit the genes, but what happens to us, with us, alongside us, our lifestyle, is going to dictate which genes are switched on. Can we switch genes off, you say? Yes, of course we can. There's all science backing this up, and I think we're at this really interesting point with science, like scientific as in scientific method and then more empirical studies. These two paths, which I think we've previously been told are like this, are actually moving closer and closer together. And I think every day there are more studies coming out that have been like clinical trials, clinically proven, peer-reviewed. There are more and more studies coming out which are confirming what practitioners and people in more mind, body, soul spaces have known and have been practicing forever. The West is catching up, basically. Now, I think all of this is really important because currently in the West, our numbers of ADHD and autism are skyrocketing. I know that's controversial. I know it's more accepted within the neurodivergent community to be like, no, it's just because we're getting better at diagnosing. Autism's up 900%. These things they're popping off at the moment. Now, we're going to get to our main point, but I think all of this needs to be said, and we might as well say it here in this space. I'm definitely noticing that there's an imbalance going on between the different communities and what differs these communities as their approach to health and well-being. We've got the camp that are like, nope, neurodevelopmental disorder, genes, that's it, nothing you can do, it's all set in stone. You've then got the opposite, which is like super holistic, ADHD and autism aren't real, ADHD and autism are bad, very pathologizing despite claiming to go against the allopathic model. Then you've got the mid ground, which I feel I sit in with, where I definitely am like, yes, I have been diagnosed by a psychiatrist with ADHD and autism. I was misdiagnosed with bipolar when I was 17. That's a whole... Still not over it, but I think that's okay. No, I am. I'm just annoyed by it. I definitely am like, yes, I have these diagnoses. Also, mast cell activation histamine at the moment is really popping off. But again, this makes sense because once we deep dive into the biochemistry of what ADHD and autism are, of course, when there's excess pollen, aka histamine boosters in the air, we're going to have this effect, which then in turn boosts mast cell activation, which in turn makes you be a little bit like, what's going on? Anyway, I think we're at a really interesting crossroads where the super scientific crowd who need things to be in a box and it needs to be of like clinically proven and sponsored by Pfizer are over here, and then we've got the other super holistic camp. I just want to say something. Holistic health is a very autistic space. So a lot of these people who are raging and all the rest of it, maybe time to look in the mirror. We're here. And I think my approach to all of this is I want to know exactly what's going on. I'm going to take these labels. I'm going to get my diagnoses from this very Western pathologizing focused land. Thank you, Diagnostics and Statistics Manual. And then let's see what we can do. Let's see how life can be more comfortable. Because as I was saying to a coaching client recently, we were having this conversation around being like, yeah, I really am proud of myself. I really am in love with myself as an ADHD and autistic person / as someone who experiences ADHD and autism. Decide depending on where you are at with identity first or you plus language. We can still do what we need to do. But we were talking about how, yes, we love ourselves and we're really proud of ourselves, but it's still difficult. And I was like, no, this is so valid, because no one is getting an ADHD or an autism diagnosis because they're having a good time. And they don't diagnose it based on good times anyway, you know. They could do, don't get me wrong, but they could also diagnose people based on the biochemistry. If you're like me and you have 0 levels of glutathione, master antioxidant, but if you've got loads of oxalates in your system, big sign that autism is taking place, because one of the key markers of autism is a lot of oxidative stress within the body. Wait, we had an interruption. We're back in. Okay, what were we talking about? We were talking about the 2 different camps where we're actually at. I think that we all deserve to be able to ask questions and be curious about our health. I do feel that in this modern world, and the more that I learn about the healthcare system, like every aspect of it, we need to be number one, and if we have the capacity to do so, we need to be taking agency for our health. Learning how the body works, learning about anatomy, and also learning about more of the physics side of things. The fact that we need sunlight, the fact that we need minerals, the fact that most of us are severely dehydrated and also don't have any access to the nutrients that we need. How can our bodies function? How can we function if we have literally evolved naked under the sun? And nowadays we're all living inside, fully clothed all the time, and the main source of light that we experience is blue light. It doesn't add up. And I think this is really empowering. It's also annoying, don't get me wrong, because I, more than anyone, love to just sit on my laptop inside for hours researching things. How do we think that we've got to this point of like, oh, I seem to know everything about this specific topic? But it's the way that it is. We did not evolve to be sat inside, alone, isolated, talking to a phone. But here we are. This is the world that we live in. But we still have varying levels, don't get me wrong, but I think those of us who do have the privilege of choice and agency within our lives, to whatever degree we have, who are we to not use it? To have this privilege of being able to choose what we eat, choose where we go, to truly be able to nourish ourselves and increase our capacity to then turn to our neighbor and show up for them and look after them and be like, yo, I just learned about this. How can I help you with this? Why don't we go take a walk outside? What do you need from me? The world gets easier, and it's less about us waiting around hoping, praying that someone else turns around and is like, oh, here's the answer. Now, this is literally what we are here to do right now, but I think in order for us to be able to hear messages like this and receive them in a way that feels safe and non-threatening, we do need to have had that awakening to, oh, I do have a lot more power, influence, insight, and agency than I originally thought. I can be the one to change my life. I can be the one to change my life, feel more resourced and more understanding of the world. And oh, look, my nervous system can feel calmer. Oh, look, instead of feeling stuck and trapped and this is all happening to me, actually, I can see how I got here. I can see how this, and this, while horrendous and really would have rather something else had happened here, I can now learn from this, take these lessons and apply them to my life moving forward. It's not going to be easy. It's not straightforward. It's not comfortable. Definitely the option of sitting inside, just rotting on a laptop or in bed or waiting or just in that pure, slightly opiate-filled misery. That's the easier option because it's familiar. But actually, long term, what is going to give us a life that feels really good and really brilliant and really powerful? Agency, action, and responsibility. So let's go. Tangent there. I think a valid and worthy tangent. I think that needed to be said, and I've been so scared of speaking to this level for so long for fear of ostracizing and overwhelming. But let's be honest, you'd have clicked off right now if this wasn't your vibe. So let's continue, and that's go. As I said before, within my work, within my therapeutic work, we are navigating and reprocessing and getting closure on a lot of trauma. Those first initial sessions are very much trauma-based, which makes sense because, like I just said, the experience of ADHD is very much made up of a dysregulated nervous system. Now, yes, genes, yes, epigenetics, yes, lifestyle, yes, if we're constantly eating a bunch of sugar, for example, that is going to be throwing off our blood sugar and thus throwing off our nervous system. Yes, parasites, yes, dehydration and mineral imbalances are also going to throw off our nervous system. If we are experiencing trauma, we are constantly going to be disbalanced, out of balance. Every time we think or are reminded of, if we're more living into complex PTSD land, every time that we are reminded and our brain's like, remember this, I'm keeping you safe, just to remind you, it is so often the case that we are re-experiencing it. And it is with PTSD, I think it's really important for people to understand it's not what happened to us that is the PTSD, it's the response that we create to this unfortunate, horrible, wrong, unjust, serious events. It's our reaction to what happened that gets us into trouble, that creates the PTSD response. Oh, it's so good. I have learnt, picked up, been taught this process wherein we can take all of your memories and we can remove the negative attachments from your memories so that the memories can simply be memories without all the weight, without that nervous system response, any behaviors, thoughts, feelings, actions, or reactions that were once associated with the memories. We can separate the two, clear this. You can't delete memories. Really wouldn't recommend doing that at all. Your brain will literally, or your consciousness moreover, will just replace it with something else. But we can take these memories and allow them to simply be. It can still be literally so fucked up and what the hell, but you are not having to every day deal with and be trying to process what happened. You can draw that line in the sand, you can draw the curtains, close that door, lock it, and genuinely throw away the key and have that sense of separation and spaciousness from the past, leaving you with actual space to be like, right, okay, that happened. How do I want to lead my life forward? How do I want to be reacting and responding to the world that I live in now? What feels true for me now? Which brings us on to a really interesting point in that so many of the chronic conditions that we experience can be linked to PTSD responses. For example, if you are someone who as a child only had your needs met when you were really unwell, say you got chickenpox and that's the first time in your life that everyone around you finally slowed down, listened to you, nurtured you, looked after you, your subconscious mind is constantly recording all the time. So you want to see your subconscious mind as like a camcorder that never turns off. One of the things that your subconscious mind is doing is recording what's going on, and it's recording what's going on, and it is also recording how you feel about what's happening. So for example, this is such an interesting one. Best example that I love is when babies are being born. If you're having a difficult birth and your mum has been eating peanuts at the time, you're having the difficult birth, you're in danger, you're in pain. Your subconscious mind is going, right, fuck, we're in danger. We're not even going to make it out of this birthing canal. What's happening right now? And it's going to scan everything that you are doing, feeling, hearing, and experiencing. If there's peanuts in your mum's system, the peanut is going to be associated with the danger. You are then born into the world and have this mysterious peanut allergy. Or it could be the case that as a child, you have a sibling that falls over, they scrape up all of their leg, and a parent is so present with them. I'm so sorry that you're in pain, let mummy look after you. Maybe your dad's present. And then the pause is like, however many dads are present, are all mums single mums? Jury's out on that one. But only because they're not resourced enough. This is not like a dad problem. I think it's more a systemic thing that's going on. God bless these men. But if you've got a sibling who's had this injury and they are receiving care, your subconscious mind is going, interesting. And even then, maybe that sibling, they'll be having bandages or cream, and then the mum will reapply the cream. Your subconscious mind is literally watching this like, very interesting. I want that. I want to be listened to. I want to be heard. I want to be nourished. I want people to slow down for me. And your subconscious mind is going, well, I want to make you happy. I always want to move you from pain towards pleasure. How about I make something like that for you? How about a little bit of eczema in the mix? Just like start putting it here. Yeah, perfect. Behind your knees, maybe on your foot. And then what are the adults in your life hopefully going to be doing? You're getting the cream. You're getting the attention. Things become interesting from this point. Yes, you can go down the more naturopathic arena of looking at the more like fungal aspects of eczema, all these things, blah, blah, blah. But it's likely to keep coming back. This approach is that root cause approach. The root cause approach is in we can go back to the emotional, that like vibrational root cause, that subconscious root cause as to this is why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. This is what it was trying to do: protect us, prioritize us, punish us. If as children we associated love with punishment, it does happen to many of us. And this is where it gets interesting, because once you're working on that emotional vibrational root cause, if you've cleared that out, all of the physical things that were associated with those old emotions and the reactions that we create in response to the emotions, especially if they're uncomfortable or unpleasant, all of this physical symptoms, gone, done, not relevant anymore, because the belief that was anchoring all of these different things in place, anxiety, eczema, avoidance, maybe even ADHD there, if we don't feel safe to be able to actually drop in and focus on something, of course our nervous system is going to wire itself, and our subconscious mind is going to keep us in a state of constant hypervigilance, not being able to drop in. Very interesting. We will get back to our original point. I think I just use themes of videos to like get me to sit down, and then we start tangenting around the place. I think this is now a podcast. Welcome. But I think it's really important that we know that this is possible and we know that this is a thing, because everyone is welcome to spend years and years medicating or manipulating our symptoms. But when you reach that point where you're like, this is expensive and long and I'm not really even interested in this anymore, this is more of a hindrance than it is than I'm getting a secondary benefit from this experience, whether it is ADHD, eczema, back pain, alopecia, asthma, all of these everyday reactions that the body is creating and perpetrating. When we are sick of being sick, we deserve to have an option that then we can change the outcomes by changing the inputs. And the way that we change the inputs is by working with the subconscious mind and changing the way that we are believing, thinking, feeling, acting, and reacting. It's literally so good. I love it, man. And I think all of this needs the caveat of as someone who is still sussing out many pieces of the health puzzle, I love that this is such a core part of that process. And I think it's really interesting and really fascinating that people can spend years existing under that harsh hand of chronic conditions, or we can be brave and be bold and go, right, I'm going to meet with my mind. You know, like the mind creates the body, or the body follows the mind, which is two ways of saying the way in which our subconscious mind is set up and programmed and molded is going to influence our very physical experiences every day. The subconscious mind is the reason why some people can simply like just have like a little bit of food and like, oh, I'm full and I'm done. Don't relate. And other people feel that need to like eat and then eat again and then have dessert and you're still hungry. That's emotionally driven. Okay, all of us only need a fistful of food per meal 3 times a day maximum. Probably stop eating at 6. Eat within the first half an hour of waking up. Have lunch. Keep your blood levels stable. Logically, easy to say. Emotionally, difficult to do. And I think holding space for all of this is important, because a lot of the health and wellness world will have us feeling like we're so less than, like such silly geese, like, oh no, why do I keep snacking when it's so straightforward, when it's so easy, when it's so obvious. Emotion beats logic every time. So what can we do? We can work with our emotions, and instead of it being an approach where it's like, oh, silly me, I keep doing the wrong thing, I'm less than, I'm not enough, I think I feel that it's a lot more supportive to work with our minds and our bodies and our beings in a state of mind and consciousness. Consciousness is like the whole thing. It's not just in our brain. The term mental health kind of doesn't make sense at this point in time, but here we are. I think we're just about talking about mental health, so we might as well keep within the parameters that people are comfortable in. But your consciousness is within your brain and your head as much as it is within your toes, or as much as it is like here, kind of like a foot outside of your body. Anyway, and I feel that it's really important to be working with ourselves therapeutically away from a deficit, less than, wrong, guilt, shame, blame approach. And I say this because that's how I was with myself for years and years and years, and I'm still working on it, you know, being patient and that kindness piece. But even talking about it just feels so much nicer, and you can feel your nervous system like, that's all I wanted the whole time, just kindness and a little bit of patience. But it makes sense that if we were raised with, you need to do more, be more, do better, even if subconsciously our caregivers and parents have this belief, we're still feeling that, you know? Children are, I think, so confronting to people. You know, people are, oh, I just don't like kids. It is often the case because they're being themselves. They haven't been taught the various contexts of the world, or they haven't been as taught, let's be honest, to mask, hide, contort, manipulate their true selves. They just are. And if you talk to a 7-year-old, like I used to babysit a 7-year-old, an icon, so blunt, so honest. We were as intelligent as each other were. I do think with kids, they're completely on it. The only thing that they don't have is as much context as people that are older. They're like fully present, switched on, and able to like see and infer different things from the world. You're learning constantly. Also, you're constantly in hypnosis at that age, which is cool. But also, that's when you just like protect these children. Anyway, and I think that is one of the reasons why people struggle to be around children, because they're so honest and they're so on it. And it's like, ooh. But so many people treat children as if they're silly or dumb or don't know as much, which is hilarious, because I know that you probably remember this. Do you remember being like a child and you'd be like, Mum, what's wrong? Or like, Dad, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine. And that's confusing, because you're like, well, I can feel that you're not. I can feel that there's tension and it feels a bit dangerous and I'm unsure. And obviously parents are like, well, I don't want my child, I need my child to think that I can do everything and I'm fine. But it creates this separation in trust because it's confusing for the child. And the child's being taught that their intuition and their read on people isn't quite right. Which now is making me think about how with people who experience ADHD and autism especially, we're often taught that our read of the room is wrong. Your ability to read the room is off. It's often not the case. Now, it is actually such a big spectrum, and I think the word autism is gonna be, I think it needs some areas, because all of us have got like different SMPs, all of us have got different methylation processes, which is why, you know, that phrase is like, if you know one autistic person, you know one autistic person. It does not show up the same in literally anyone else. And they did this study of a good few thousand kids, and they were looking at their different metabolic pathways and different metabolic functioning, and only 5% of the kids that were all diagnosed with autism, only 5% of the kids had the same metabolic differences, shall we say. Anyway, that is a tangent, but I think it's still interesting. If you're with me, or with me if you're not, really, I'm so excited for your day of getting really into like understanding the different metabolic pathways, because it's so interesting. And again, I think this is why we're in this really fascinating point within health. And I think ADHD and autism are going to be shunting and pushing health, science, healthcare, individuals, high responsible beings. It's going to be pushing us towards this much deeper awareness of human functioning, because I know that if I hadn't ever experienced ADHD or autism and the chronic health conditions, which it's all the same thing, but anyway, just wouldn't have spent the time learning about physiology, anatomy, quantum biology. I would have never learned about how physics have such a huge influence on human functioning, and how physics and biology are as important as one another, and how biochemistry is, you know, because the way that science was taught in school was just so boring, and it was so elitist, and it was so, well, these girls know it and you girls don't understand it, and you're there like, to be fair, I don't. Now I'm being made to feel like I'm less than, I don't care. Which brings us back around to our point about how so many of us are raised with super high expectations, with not a lot of patience. When we have emotional outbursts, they are suppressed. Don't cry. If you stop doing that, I'm going to give you this treat. This is bad. Be quiet, be less than, be silent, be smaller. Which doesn't work if you have a nervous system which is inherently dysregulated and you're seeking regulation. Human beings do not regulate in general through like suppression and sitting really quietly like, I'm fine. Oh, it's so bad. But we don't, do we? How do human beings regulate? We regulate through touch, through sound, through voicing how we feel, through giving movement to the emotions, energy, emotions that we experience. My eye is twitching. And allowing us that literal space to be like, okay, your eye's twitching, we're getting overexcited. I'm aware that people are going to be watching this video and that's like, ugh. But I'm here with you. No one ever regulated through sitting and just like, let me dissociate away from my feelings. But that's what we're taught to do. If anyone has been a cry it out sufferer, endurer, that's what we're taught to do. If you're quiet, you can come out again. When you've calmed down, you can rejoin us. When you have become less, we will accept you again, is the message that we're being taught at a very young age. Of course, it now makes sense that people grow up and they dissociate away from their feelings. They experience alexithymia, as in they cannot tune in to how they feel. People, a lot of floating heads, disconnected from their bodies. One of the reasons being that when they were tuned into their bodies, and especially if you are in a body that is overwhelmed, overburdened, dysregulated, that would have been so painful. And if we are not met and supported in that state of being, and instead we're told, shh, enough, or go to your room, you're going to be isolated and alone, shamed and shunted away for being yourself. Of course, the subconscious mind, which is recording everything and recording how we feel and think and respond to what we're experiencing, of course the subconscious mind is going to then intervene and go, have I got a solution for you? Just cut it off. Just don't feel your feelings anymore. You're welcome, mate, because it was so dangerous and overwhelming for you to feel your feelings at the full extent when you were 3 or 5, even 15. Just won't do that anymore. Bye. And I think that is one of the, it's so interesting. And this is why I love doing the work that I do, because so many clients come in who experience alexithymia. And in my support group that we're doing every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. British Standard Summertime, whatever it is. Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. Weekly Wednesday meetups. You are invited on Zoom. Link down below. I will see you there. I'm running them every week for a year, and we're going to see what happens after then. We've done 1 week, so we've got 51 left. I'm excited. So many people within our first meeting were talking about alexithymia. I can't actually feel my feelings. I don't realize that I'm ill until I'm really ill. I don't realize that I'm hungry until I'm starving. I don't realize that I'm thirsty until I'm dehydrated constantly, which, as we know, is terrible. Most people are chronically dehydrated, and it is so bad for you, or not optimal. It's not nourishing you. And I think the more and more that people are waking up to the ADHD and autism they experience, the more people are going to be going, right, so what do we do now? Because I'm uncomfortable and The one good thing about our Western modern world is that discomfort is something that people seek to sort out and get rid of. And I think with things like these reactions and experiences, to truly resolve the uncomfortable aspects of it needs that deeper work. There needs to be an emotional component involved, and you need to be talking to, connecting into your subconscious mind, because otherwise it's daily management. I know for me, when I used to smoke weed all the time, that was self-medicating, that was manipulating. It's not like I would smoke once and be like, okay, cool, everything's what it needs to be, this is great. Or even when I was smoking multiple times every single day, being proud of myself if I wasn't stoned at 9 a.m, bless me. Even when doing that, the problems still came up again, and I had to smoke again and again and again, because I wasn't, and this is me like debating what medicine truly means to us, but it was like a means to an end for 2 hours maximum, because my nervous system was still fried, my nutritional levels were still all over the place, vegan, malnourished. I was still in an environment that was conducive to chaos and stress and guilt and fear and shame and coercion and all these things. My subconscious mind was still reacting in the same way that it had when I was 2, 3, 5, 15, because I hadn't gone back in and edited the way my subconscious had responded. It's like a giant snowball effect. Every single thought, feeling, action, reaction that I had developed, all of these reactions were just kind of like fighting each other. So of course I was overwhelmed. Of course I was chronically depressed. Of course I was incredibly sensitive, because my nervous system was so fried and so hypervigilant that even someone else across the room feeling lightly disgruntled, I would tune into. I would be aware of it and I would see it as a threat. Not thinking it was a threat, on that vibrational subconscious level, being like, I am in danger. I'm overwhelmed. I'm going to fly off the handle because I don't feel safe here and I need to do something big. I need to do a big reaction so that people will leave me alone or look after me, depending on which day it was. I clearly don't experience alexithymia. I think my body definitely went the opposite direction and was like, hypervigilance for you. That's what you're going to be having. Thank you, subconscious mind. But it is so fascinating to reflect on all of this, and then when I work with my clients, have it reflected back to me. I'm comfortable talking and sharing all of this because I have the framework, the structure, and the program to remediate this, to resolve this, to resolve this, to be able to go, yep, let's fully validate the absolute cluster of chaos that you're currently experiencing. Why don't we try this? Take that feeling that you're currently experiencing, and I wonder what feeling would be even better for you. That belief that you're currently coming up against every day, I wonder what belief would serve you more, what would nourish you, help you. Perfect, this feeling of feeling confident. Perfect, where would you feel that sensation of feeling confident? Perfect, brilliant, and I bet you can double that sensation of confidence, can't you? And doubling that again. And just noticing that every breath you take, you are able to double and triple and increase that sensation of confidence. Perfect. Sending that over and around your body, easily, effortlessly, right here, right now, allowing that sensation to be stronger than anything else you've ever experienced. Feeling what it's like as you're leading your life forward confidently, calmly, trusting yourself. Noticing where you are as you know, feel, and understand that you feel so confident. And this sense of confidence is so familiar, so accessible to you right here, right now. Brilliant, perfect, excellent. Beautiful. For example, an example of how these things can happen. It's so good. What was I saying? Oh, your original theme. How to reclaim our sense of self after experiencing prolonged periods of trauma / the reaction to the traumatic event. And I think I want to talk about this because it's definitely the journey that I've been on, and it has taken a long time, partially because I think I like to take the long way around so that I gain as much experience as possible. Seems to be the truth of that one, as annoyed as I get. But also I think things do take longer than we think they're going to, mainly because we need to integrate them. And I think as well, like, we didn't get sick overnight. We didn't become hypervigilant and adrenally fatigued. I know some people like adrenal fatigue's not real. Okay. Okay, person who's not chill with kidney supports and empirical evidence. Anyway, we're allowed to take time, and I think by giving ourselves that gift of time and consistency and patience, that in itself is creating more safety and more trust within our bodies. It's showing our nervous system, I'm going to be here with you today, and I'm showing up for you tomorrow. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here with you. I'm going to be here for you, beside you. One of my favorite things to say to myself when I'm overwhelmed or don't want to do something out loud, I'll be like, do you know what, mate? Let's just do it together. And it's so nice. My body is literally every time just like, okay. Like, do you remember maybe you were at school and you had like a nice teacher, like that teacher that kind of saw through your bravado and was like, I'm on to you, motherfucker. I see myself in you. Let's do this one together. I had a couple of those, a good few. Being present with ourselves, and it's such a reset. And again, that's so much of the subconscious work. We are rewriting the thoughts, beliefs, patterns, and thus the paradigm that we're existing in. We are creating a new framework, new points of reference, and new beliefs to carry ourselves forward. It is especially interesting with things like chronic health, which again, if you experience it, I mean, some people say that autism is a hyper autoimmune response reaction condition. I'm not here disagreeing with them. I know that if I do certain things or don't do certain things, it's going to flare up. It's going to be more intense, more obvious, more prolific. I not just want to eat chips. But that makes sense because chips are high histamine, fried foods. Our gut and our brain are inherently linked. Gut inflammation equals brain inflammation, autism. Besties. Anyway, sense of self. So yeah, when we're experiencing chronic health issues, it's often the case that our sense of self is warped and changed and challenged. And many of us identify very heavily with what we're feeling and what we're experiencing. And especially if we've experienced a reaction, symptoms for so long, of course it feels normal to us because that is our normal. If you're constantly in pain, of course that's your normal. Of course that's normal to you because it's familiar. And that spark or that version of you when you were 16 or 7 or 10 or 21 feels really far away. And I think that's one of the most savage aspects of chronic health conditions, reactions, is that it's so all-encompassing. And you know those days when you're experiencing that chronic fatigue and you're like, sure, objectively, I know what I need to do today, but I physically feel like that is never happening for me again. I'm with you, okay? And I know for me, I think I say this a lot, but I guess it's a part of me that I really want to get back to. And I'm very grateful that I am expanding my window of tolerance, that I am being more consistent with more like body-based stuff, like liver detox, for example. Expanding that window so that, like, when I was younger, for example, I was like, I'm gonna be like a men's fashion designer, like I wanna do fashion, like this whole bookshelf is fashion books. All fashion books. And that was like my thing, my jam. I loved putting together outfits, really structured situations at hand, like it was cool. And it has been so interesting that as my body has over the years become more I'm sorted it out now, but definitely in times of like acute flare-ups from all the different aspects. What makes our bodies more sensitive? Trauma, environment, not helping our body detox, these two things. It has been so interesting that my ability to wear like structured, neat outfits just out the window. I exist in tracksuits, even to this day, because that's what's familiar now. But I think that is our sense of identity and our sense of self. And yet, I think a big part of recovering our lives, and not recovering like the old way that we used to be, more just like recovering our access to plotting, planning, and leading ourselves through life. For me, that's what recovery means. I don't want to recover anything out of the way that I used to live at all. Also, I'd be super young if we're like going back to before all of the horrors. I don't need to reclaim me when I was like 10. But we do need to integrate all of those versions of us, but they don't have to be the leaders. For me, recovery means reclaiming the ability to lead, or even learning in the first place how to lead ourselves through life, which just feels nicer. And again, that feels very important as well, of like genuinely, there can be all the tests, all the diagnoses, all the pathologizing in the world. What feels true to you? How do you feel in your body? Say if you've got like food intolerances, how do you feel in your body as you're sat in front of these foods that you are intolerant to, not meant to be eating? What often leads you to consume those foods? Say if you're also gluten intolerant. When you find yourself going to eat these very like gluten-y, heavy foods, how do you feel? What's the emotion that's driving you towards those? Is it you're reacting to the food, or is it more you're having this emotional response and that's being amplified? Good questions to be asking. Anyway, these are excellent. I have 2 of them. So good. The never-ending story. I hope you don't mind the sound. My mum says she hates the sound of these. So yeah, other ways in which we can claim our sense of self, I think, is through tuning into those activities that used to really light you up. I've always been into drawing. I like character drawing. Currently, I think it's in here. I need to do more of that. There's this one rabbit that I'm really trying to like get good with, because I want to make dolls of it. But really tuning into those things that you love, that you enjoy, that light you up, that is going to be huge. And I think that's so weird. It's proper like, did you also have the type of autism where you're obsessed with Japan at 13? Because me too. Jared, can you draw more? There's nothing in here. Like, I'm sorry, me. What I want to say is, by giving ourselves access to these activities and actions, we are giving ourselves evidence that I am safe and I am able to do this. Oh, the body loves that. And I think when we are low dopamine, so many of us just want cheap access to dopamine, blue light. What really is going to give us the joy and the gifts that we're really seeking as those harder to finish do. You know, we need those bigger rewards, because then you're going to feel better when we're achieving those. Right, this video is all over the place, but I think that's okay. I ate loads of oysters before I made this. I think I feel really hyped for life. But I guess that's good, isn't it? You finally give your body the nutrition it needs and you're suddenly like, I'm awake. I can do this. So this has been real. Thanks for coming. Shall I not edit this so it's honest? Probably. Cool. Right. This has been this. People say that they like this type of format where it's just me being myself. So let's do that instead of trying to like come across as super polished, because that's not true. We're more the creative vibe. Right, I've got a client in 20 minutes. Right, perfect. Thanks for being here with me. My name is Josephine.k. If you want to take that next step and make things happen, this is what I'm here for. As much as I love making YouTube videos, I want to work with you. Welcome to content marketing. For real. I'd love to know how this video landed with you, and as and when you're ready to go for gold and to begin your work with me, I am ready. Let's do this. I'm literally so excited. Perfect. Thanks for coming. From me and my tangles, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.